Hello, all you beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of Perfect Faraday. I'm your host, George Merchant, with my co host here,
Jeremiah Evans. Welcome back.
Today, we're going to talk about good and evil. Maybe we could try to define those terms clearly, what we're talking about, and come from differing perspectives on this. And I think that it's topical for all of time, but it just seems like maybe more recently in what's been going on in the news and everything that it's been a subject that's been kind of tickling my brain and how to approach it, because I try to be really careful about calling somebody evil or saying, they're an evil person. Deeds, I'm much more likely to say that was an evil deed, or that's evil, or that that action is evil. Those are usually a little bit easier to cast judgment on than the whole person themselves. But so, Mr. Jeremiah, how would you define good? Let's start with good.
Good.
Yeah. And then I'll go first on evil for you or whatever. So, but good. Let's just start with good.
Good. Huh?
What do you think is good? Define good in the picture of good versus evil. What's good?
I think like a mint chocolate, like dark chocolate, like gelato is really good. No, I think people that try to work toward the betterment of the people around them, and that, if we're talking about actual people.
Yeah.
Maybe, if we're talking in the grander scheme of things, what is it, chaos versus cosmos or whatever, I guess you could get into that, but.
What's your definition of good?
I don't know. Like good deeds or
Yeah, whatever you define as good. I mean, when you think of a good person, what comes to mind? What traits come to mind? What are those things that rise up and say, okay, that's a good person. They have these particular traits, and you're like, okay, that's a good person. Nobody's perfect, but you look at them and you say, oh, that's a good person.
Yeah. I guess as far as not just for me, but like society, I think people that are more nurturing and loving, are good.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I probably have a funny definition of good. Like people that make me smile are usually people that are,
So people that make you laugh.
Yeah, like me, kind of act all like rough or whatever, but really are just teasing and stuff. So I guess just not having like ill intentions,
Okay, so not being bad in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
So I can, for me, good and in the context of when you're talking about good and evil, good is selflessness. Good is self-sacrifice. Good is love. Good is compassion and forgiveness and empathy. Good is action and not needing to take credit. Good is honor and valor. Good is serving something bigger than yourself. Good is what drives me is when I wake up in the morning, I want people to see a good man. I want my actions and deeds, my words and my steps in life to reflect on who I am, and for other people to know me by those deeds and think of me as a good man. It has always been a desire since I was very young for people to look at me and see a good man. I know I'm imperfect. I know I'm flawed. I know I make plenty of mistakes. But good to me, I can clearly define, and it takes many words to do, but good is the eternal traits. Good is love, hope, faith. All of these things are good. They're inherently good. They span across all cultures and all periods of time. Morality is good. It is good to have morals, guiding principles and values. These are all good things. Now I'll go first this time because I put you on the spot and I give you a chance to think about it for a minute. So now we've defined good. Let's flip this and say, because we're going to lay this out. Evil. What is evil? And it's not enough to just simply say that evil's not good. Evil is the opposite of good. It's not quite that. Evil can actually be more clearly defined. It can be narcissism, selfishness, immorality, self-serving, greed, lack of empathy. It's mostly focused around the internalizing and saying, I am more important than everything else. I come before everything else. And I am the center of the universe. There is nothing larger than me. There is no God. There is no... And I'm not saying if you're atheist or agnostic that, you're evil. I'm just saying that if you cannot see that there are other things bigger than you, there's a whole world out there, there's whole cultures out there, there's things that are bigger than you as an individual, there's things that you can uphold. Immorality is evil. Having no virtue, being dishonorable, being a liar, lying, these things are all evil. Now, of course, maybe it's a little bit easier for me to define. I believe that maybe it's in how I was raised, but I also believe it's probably from studying the Bible that a lot of that comes out of, because there's so many examples in there of good and evil, and there were people that did both good and evil things. King Solomon, David, so on and so forth. All of the Noah, Moses. You go through all of what people would think of in Sunday school as the heroes of the Bible. They did both good and evil things. So you can't say that they're all good or all evil. You say that these deeds that they did were evil, and then in the end, God judges the heart. God judges you in the end, and you're weighed and measured. You're found to be a good man or not, or a good woman or not. And I believe that defining those things are very important. So what would you call evil? I'm gonna make this fair, and I know I put you on the spot on the first one. We don't pre-plan this stuff.
I think for me, I can define evil better. Like, I don't think that there's too many people in this world that are truly evil. It's actions that are evil.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
And as far as like a biblical sense, like I've always said that it's just easy to say the devil, or whatever. You know, like I don't believe in the devil. Like, whether I believe in Jesus or not is another thing. I mean, I think Jesus was like the greatest archetype, if nothing else. But sure, they talk about Lucifer in the Bible, but like he was good at one time, right? And then he fell. But I think a lot of people want to map horrible behavior in this world to, just pure evil, rather than, look at other factors,
Yep.
mental health or whatnot.
Yep.
But yeah, it's funny that I have a hard time defining good, but I feel like I have a pretty good grasp of evil. It's just like, I try to see the good in most everything, you know, even though sometimes I have a hard time seeing it in myself, you know.
I think we all struggle with that a little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess you could, you know, light versus dark. I mean, is darkness really evil? You know, like there's a lot of things, you know,
No.
that we map to darkness, you know,
Yeah.
that people
Yeah.
are afraid of, you know, they're fearful of, that aren't necessarily like evil, but
Yeah. Those are
that they frighten you, right? You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are psychological associations. You know what I mean? Over time, you know, because being in the dark,
Yeah.
you know, is fearful and stuff.
Well,
So I think it's bad.
like I was telling you recently, like I used to have, oh my gosh, I'm blanking. It's probably those fumes from that customer. Those paint fumes. I would call those evil. If you could call something inanimate evil.
Yeah. Call.
What is it? Night terrors or sleep paralysis? I used to have that quite a bit more, and like I mean, maybe I'll post a link, but you know, I know that I'm not the only person that's ever had that, where you just like you wake up and you're like, you know, locked and you see things or whatever that.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you know, like a lot of people fear it, and I had quite a few in the house that I lived in before I moved here, and I finally got to the point where I was like, I don't think this is anything evil, you know, it's just something I don't understand.
Yeah.
And then I had one recently, and it was really kind of weird, but because I think all the times before it was like, you know, people talk about OBEs or out of body experiences, you know, it's kind of like my eyes weren't open, but you know, I couldn't wake myself, you know, but
Yeah.
I could somehow see the area around me
Yeah.
without getting into too weird you know, spiritual stuff or that, but I know other people have experienced it, so I mean, call me crazy or not, but you know, like, so I actually like legit opened my eyes multiple times and I just couldn't move, and it was like I had a darkness burned into my eyes instead of like when you look at a light, it's like bright. It was just strange to me, but I wasn't fearful of it. I didn't feel like if it was something that had ill intent for me, just something I didn't understand. It could just be my brain, you know,
Yeah.
in a state, you know.
No. Could be a you know, in between sleep and wake, and an optic nerve issue or brain issue or something like that. The reason I asked is I wanted to make clear that I have clear definitions of good and evil. Like I always have. I've always had clear definitions of good and evil, and I believe that that's actually an explanation, I think, a lot to my line of thinking and others that are like me, and the way that we view the world and the lens that we view the world through, is that for these things, they're clearly defined for us, where we don't try to say something, or usually I shouldn't try to speak for everybody, but I don't try to claim something that's evil and try to say it's good. And I believe that that's where we're at in society now, when you have people pushing pornographic material to children. I call that evil. I'm like, that's evil. But then you've got people that either say, no, it wasn't happening, and they were lying about it, which again is evil. Okay. And then once it was proven to be true, and some of this stuff was happening in, you know, deep red states or whatever, if you want to get political about it. But once that happened, then they were like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's just sex ed or whatever, or something like that. And I was like, okay, this doesn't have to do with biology. You know, you don't need to be teaching sex ed to kindergartners or stuff. I understand teaching biology and stuff, and maybe later in middle school and high school and everything like that. The biology is okay, but you know, the sperm goes to the egg, and that's how, you know, mammals, you know, all mammals work and stuff. But you don't have to be graphic. You don't have to show pornography or anything like that. And that's what these materials were. And you have people trying to claim that these evil things, these corrupting things, these immoral things are good. Okay? And I think that's why it's important to so clearly define what is good and what is evil, you know? And I've always, I've never treated anybody bad because of their race, religion, sexual orientation, any of that. I've had friends from all walks of life. I've never been disrespectful to them. I do not, based on who they are and where they come from and what their beliefs are, I have never mistreated anybody based on those creed and credentials. I never have. I cannot think of a single instance in my life where I've ever done that. It's not who I am. It's not how I was raised. Yet, because of my moral, my faith, I, in modern terms, I would be deemed sexist, racist, misogynist, Nazi, fascist, queerphobic, transphobic, all of these different things. And it's a lie on top of that, and it's done to shame the good. And there's a I think it's Isaiah 5:20. It's basically, woe to those who call evil good and good evil. Okay? This is not new. This is not new. People, I mean, you'll see little kids do it when they, try to talk their way out of something that bad they did. Something bad they did. They're like, oh, but this, and oh, but so and so did this, and my thing's not as bad by comparison. I hear adults do it, but it's a very childish, form. Instead of owning what you did and saying, oh, I was wrong, I shouldn't have done this, please forgive me, and you grow and you move on. And I think we should all try to approach life that way. But right now you have a very large segment of the population that seems to have had control of the media narrative that's been feeding Western culture. And I say Western culture because it's not the United States. It's not just the U.S. It's the U.S., it's Canada, it's pretty much all of Europe, Australia, and I'm sure some of it's infected some of the other countries as well. But what it's been doing is it's been saying all of these things, when it comes to the dating stuff and marriage and everything, and don't get married, just sleep around, and you see all the destructive things that come from that. I mean, and
so you think that's inherently evil, or just I would describe it as people losing their way,
Yeah, well, people lose their way and then they end up doing evil deeds, okay. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's a fair question. And I'm not trying to say this person or that person is evil. That's really beyond what I should judge. You know what I mean? That's not in my hands. By my faith, that's in God's hands. That's not in my hands. But I can judge what an evil deed is. Like a person doing a certain thing, a person harming a child, sexually exploiting a child, that kind of thing is evil.
Well, just to kind of break in there, do you think in a way society dictates what's evil or good? Not just necessarily just our society.
No.
So do you think it was always evil, even back, 200-300 years ago, when it was okay to marry a 13, 15-year-old or whatever? Do you still think that was evil? Because people didn't live as long back then,
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not condoning, underage stuff, because I think it's disgusting myself. But it's just a question, I feel like I have to ask, because, it was okay. until more recently. Not by everybody, I don't think. Not like every society
Yeah.
or whatever. And there's still societies
And-
in the
and-
world where that is okay.
And I would
you know?
say, and I would also caveat that with that depends as well. That depends because human survival, like may have, if it wasn't exploitive, you know what I mean, kind of in nature and stuff, then yeah, I wouldn't say it was native. You have to look at what the motivation of the action is. Is it selfishness, that kind of thing? But yeah, I would say for the most part, yes. For the most part, that I would say, yeah, that was evil.
So do you think going against the natural order or whatnot, whatever you want to call it, is evil? Like, playing God?
Yes. Yeah.
Genetic?
Yes, I do. I
In all cases, or
no, not in all cases.
like,
No.
gene therapy that might save somebody from dying from cancer or something?
Yeah. No. Now that's
So where's the defining line there to you?
selfishness.
Selfishness?
Selfishness. Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
so.
Self-serving. I want to be 2 feet taller. Inject that thing with me. Or inject that in my kids or whatever. So they'll grow up taller. So
if it prevents somebody from dying, it might be okay.
Oh, absolutely. It
But
would be
it's probably
okay.
not
Yeah.
as always
But
okay.
you
What
see
if-
the difference there, though. You
Yeah.
see, yeah, you're right. That's
But I think that there's even lines there where it's like, well, okay, you saved this one person, but you might kill like 100 others.
yeah, right. like we had to harvest all these. Like stem cells from fetal tissue.
Yeah.
Like for me, if a baby had to be killed in order to, to produce this therapy or whatever, it's evil. It's absolutely evil. I mean, for me, there's like no even wiggle room there. That's just fundamentally evil.
Yeah.
You took a life to save your own or save somebody else. You became the judge, and you judged the very most innocent of our society of existence, and you said they're not worth as much as this other life. Who has that power? Who in this world has that power? Nobody has that power.
Yeah.
And nobody should have that power. So yeah, you get into some gray areas. Now, those are great questions, though. You get into some gray areas there where, you talk about like, oh, okay, well, this thing and that thing and stuff, and it's like, yeah, there are some things there that if it's self-serving, selfishness, and that's purely what it is, then yes, I believe it's evil. If that's the motivation, yeah, that's evil.
I guess I don't have as many like individually defined things. I just think like killing because you want to, whatever that looks like, not because you have to save your life. That's evil to me.
Yeah, because you could ask me an open-ended question and say, is killing evil? Well, usually yes. I would say, yeah, usually killing is evil. But what if you're killing in self-defense? Okay, well, that's not the same thing. Or you're killing to defend your family. Well, that's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Or, you're killing to defend your property or whatever. Well, now we're starting to get a little bit more in the gray area and whatever. Well, that depends. You know what I mean?
Well, what about? I mean, I hate to say killing in the name of God because we've definitely done it like for other things besides that. But
That is absolute evil.
Yeah, like. Yeah, killing just for the sake of, keeping your thought, like the prevalent thing or whatever, or because you want something that somebody else has, like, because I know we went to war for multiple different reasons.
Well, usually,
around that.
Yeah, usually,
or
wars
we burned women at the, I don't, what did they burn the witches on? Pyres or whatever, just because they were a little goofy or whatever, they did stuff that
were different.
Yeah.
Maybe they were homeopathic doctors or something like that. They used herbs to heal people.
A weird thing in all of that. What do you think about serial killers? Do you think they're inherently evil?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they're like a more like they're almost like a purer form of evil. It's because there's in most cases there's nothing. From what I've observed, read, listened to, it seems to me like there's no moral code there at all.
Yeah,
You know
it's
what I
kind
mean?
of a mixed bag for
But
me.
they know what they're doing is wrong, or they wouldn't hide it.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think
know
they
that it was
fear
wrong.
they fear the repercussions.
They
that
fear
their
the repercussions,
mind
yeah.
doesn't have, the things in place to, you know, judge like moral goodness or
Is it the
badness.
mind?
Well, I mean, something, within them.
Is it the mind or is it the soul?
I mean, it ultimately controls the mind, whatever,
Yeah.
So,
Yep. So
we don't move, because
I do find
air
serial
like
killers
blows us around,
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess if you want to give some examples of like, well, not you, if I could give some examples, like John Wayne Gacy was definitely evil, but I mean, probably all of them are, but like he was definitely an extreme like form of evil because he preyed on kids.
Absolutely.
He had his way with them and killed them, and when they interviewed him, he altered his like story, almost like you could almost like believe him, like when you listen to him that he believed it was true. It was really disturbing. I don't know if you've ever like watched interviews with him, but I think somebody like what was that charismatic guy that just,
Jim Jones or
No, Zac Efron, played him, and
oh gosh, I don't do this to me on camera, man. Ask me names of people like that. I'm
apparently he killed.
I can see his face in my
He
head.
killed a
too.
bunch of people, where I was born in Salt Lake, but I can't think of his name. Like he was like an interesting character because like he was just so gone, but he didn't. It just made sense. It was just like somebody going out and hunting, to him. I'm not saying like it was But then you have people like oh crap, I can't remember any of these guys' names. The guy that actually didn't kill anybody, he just got his like parishioners to do it. He scratched the swastika in his
Helter
forehead.
Skelter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What can I think of any of these guys' names? Yeah, he was probably pretty evil.
Yeah. Now you've got a lot of examples to, and then you could put Stalin,
Yeah, right.
Hitler, Mao. You know what I mean? It's like
Who was it that killed the most people? It's somebody that somebody doesn't think about. I heard it not too long ago.
From
Like maybe
Mao.
not even.
Mao was the one that I think people believe may have killed the most. I believe that was thought to be Mao. Because they never really knew the numbers, and they were off by like millions, so tens of millions. So they're not quite confident on what the exact number is. Like how many did he starve out?
I definitely would say killing that many people, like obviously Hitler and Mao and Stalin.
Yeah, those are kind of the easy ones, right?
Heck,
Come to mind.
the Kublai Kai or whatever. What was his name? The guy that, supposedly 1/3 of like all Asiatic people are like descendants of him.
Oh, Genghis Khan.
Yeah, Genghis Khan.
Yeah, Genghis Khan.
He was probably
Yeah.
probably evil in a way, right?
Oh, I'm sure he was evil.
But he thought what he was doing was right, So I guess that falls under like what we were talking about, like
Well, that's
going to war for what.
Yeah. So many times wars, what wars are really fought over is over resources. It's resources.
Ted Bundy.
There you go, Ted Bundy. So wars are fought over resources, and then they're blanketed in the narrative of some moral justification, right? Because remember, you got to get young men worked up to go risk their lives and die for something bigger than themselves, something greater than themselves. You have to inspire them either through fear or motivation, and motivation's a much better factor because fear, when they see the opportunity and a door is open, you're much more likely to get deserters, saboteurs, people that just won't engage in the fight, won't shoot. They'll shoot above the heads of the enemies. This is actually a psychological fact a lot of people don't realize about soldiers in war, is that most of them actually will not shoot and kill an enemy. And that's actually a fact. They
Even if they can't see the enemy?
they documented that. They documented they're more likely if they can't see the enemy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like drone
face
strike
to face,
stuff,
they probably
Yeah,
like
but when they
stop
can
it.
see,
But if they
that
could
that's
lob
a
like a
person,
mortar shell and like
Yeah.
take out 50 people and just not know that,
Yeah.
you know,
No,
they
no.
did that or whatever.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, because you're not seeing it, and there's a psychological change there. There's a big
Is there any
psychological
truth? Well, I mean, I don't know how our military. I know like other like they try to condition you to like dehumanize your enemy or whatever.
Yes, yeah, there absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
that's a bit evil to me, you know. But
Well-
like, I guess if it's in the scenario that it's like us versus them, but I don't know how many of you know.
well, officially, no. I would say the official stance of you know, the DoD and you know all the branches, pretty much in their training is that, well, at least it used to be, that we were upheld to higher standards. We honored the Geneva Convention, at least we used to. That there were certain rules we didn't break, and we, you know what I mean. We didn't kill the innocent. We tried to be very careful as much as possible. But during the fog of war, all of those, you know, good ideals kind of melt away under the chaos and the terror and the destructive nature of war. You know, like you say, lobbing mortar shells and stuff. You know, like how do you know? You know the enemy's over there. You're confident, or you know with 100% certainty the enemy's generally over there. You lob, and you end up hitting a school full of children. You know.
Yeah.
So that's and that is a very real thing.
Yeah.
And these things destroy people.
Yeah, I would say that's why you have a lot of.
Yeah, you have a lot of
veterans with PTSD. It's like something that happened in war. That
Yeah.
was
yeah
just-
for a myriad of
whether
reasons.
they did it or not, or just saw it. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like the aftermath of it. Like
Yeah,
it
and-
changes a person. So, what was I going to ask exactly? It's along those lines. See, I don't know. Like, if I had to kill somebody, like if it was me versus them, it's just hard to say. Like, I've never done it, but I almost feel like. I mean, it would change me. I know, but
It changes every minute.
yeah. But sometimes I just think if it came down to that, maybe I would just do it and not think twice about it. I mean, is that like an evil way to think? You know?
Life. You're talking about life or death.
Yeah, not that I had like just want to kill somebody, but like
Yeah, I
know,
hope
if
for
somebody put my
YouTube's
life
sake
in
that you're
danger,
making
you know,
that.
and I snuff their life out. You know, like
Yeah, you're defending yourself.
yeah.
Yeah, let's make that clear because you know
Right.
we're.
Yeah, I was just
like-
talking about serial killers and how I'm not sure all
Yeah.
of them are evil.
Yeah,
They're like definitely silly serial killer.
you just
We
made
got
the
Dexter on our hands.
you just made the FBI watch list, bro. But yeah, no, the act of self defense or defending you know the innocent, it is not evil. That's not evil, but it still has forced you to make a very terrible and harsh step. Okay, let's roll this back for a minute. Let's take killing off the table for a moment. Okay, let's just do something that's a little bit more easier for people to understand. Okay, you wake up in the morning and your knees hurt because you're in your mid-40s now and everything hurts. You wake up, your knees hurt, your hands hurt, your back hurts, and you don't want to get out of bed, right? Because you know you're hurting and you're like, I need to rest a little bit more. I need to rest a little more. But you've got 3 kids to feed
Yeah.
and you got a family to take care of,
Yeah.
right? So you get up and you go and you do the thing that you need to do. Okay. A dog is attacking a small child. You know you're going to get tore up if you get in between them, but you step in, and yep, you have to get 30 stitches now because that dog just ripped you up or whatever stuff. And this is something that you wouldn't normally say would be a good thing if it was just the dog alone and you're just like, you know, reaching in to do this thing. It's very self-destructive if there's no child involved or nothing like that. But you're doing the thing that you have to do. It is the right thing to do. It is the thing that you have to do. And you have to look at what the justification, the reason is behind it, right? So if we look at evil, good, what's the justification for the former, and I'm going to bring this back around as to what kind of motivated me about this. What's the justification for not removing and having zero budget or time really spent, and that even after multiple people requested, what is the justification and reasoning for not removing child pornography, CP, exploitive material? I know this gets uploaded to YouTube, so I don't know what all words we can actually use, but what's the moral justification for not removing that when requested? Instead spending enormous amount of time and resources on attacking political enemies, and kids that had been exploited reached out to Twitter and said, please take this down. This is me in these images. I was abused. Please take this down. And they didn't. Okay? Mm-hmm. There is none. There is none. Okay? There's none.
How does the dog analogy play into that? I guess I didn't link the two.
Because you're doing something that's destructive. Okay? But there's a justification for doing so, like defending yourself, right? Defending your family. There's a justification for taking this like really harsh action, right? You know what I mean? So them not doing these things, them really taking action against it. Really, what moral justification can somebody come up with?
So you're saying, like, in that scenario, if the guy just let the dog maul the kid and didn't try to step in there, is that what you're saying?
No.
Like, that would be evil versus like actually fighting it off and trying to save the child.
Well, yeah, I would think that was evil. Yeah.
Yeah. I just
don't know I would think that was bad. But that's not what I'm not trying to say. His action right there was good and evil. He took a destructive action, like in self-defense. You took a destructive action. You did something that was hard, difficult. Some people may see as wrong, right? Like the Kyle Rittenhouse case, stuff like that. There's a bunch of people that see what he did as wrong, even though if you look at the tapes and the videos and everything like that, you look at it and you go, that was clearly self-defense. But for some people, they view him as evil. They view him as evil. I don't think his actions were evil. He acted in self-defense. He had to do these things, and when and the whole juxtaposition, the whole good versus evil, right? Light versus dark, the whole good versus evil argument. I see society playing out right now, and the people that have had control over the narrative have been telling people that the evil things that they're doing is good, and the good things and the wholesome people are evil. Okay? Mm-hmm. And that's where we're at right now in Western society. That's where we're at. But you know what? I think we've always been there. I think that fight has always been going on. So
who's the truly like evil person, that scenario, the person that just doesn't want to think for themselves and just follows, the direct or the hand like guiding them?
I would say that you've got the banality of evil. You've got the people that just go along. You've got the Auschwitz guards that said, I was just following orders, right? Yeah. You've got the people that just went along with the evil. I think that their deeds are evil. I think that what they were involved with was pure evil. So yes, I would say that the people that were just like, it's not, I would say that their deeds are evil. They're compliant in evil. You know what I mean? They're just saying, oh, okay, yeah. They don't stand up against it. They don't push back. They just let it happen. They don't say anything. They don't bring any of this stuff to authorities. They don't say, hey, there's this bad thing happening here. Stop. Somebody needs to stop this. Somebody needs to stop this. And
so
that's where I'm at with that. It's like,
I think apathy is like truly a evil trait, and I've made this argument or thought thing with people quite a bit. Like when we had the gas shortage here on the East Coast, and I watched TikTok or whatever it was, who knows where it like originally came, and there's just a guy like filming this little Asian lady like filling up trash, or not trash bags, but
grocery bags.
Yeah, with gasoline, because she maybe doesn't know better, but he's just sitting there to get those clicks.
Yeah,
laughing at her the whole time rather than stepping out of the vehicle and being like, "Ma'am, that's dangerous. You could get killed."
Yeah.
To me, that's like truly evil. You can map that out to, I don't know the whole like scenario with George Floyd, but I feel like rather than 30 people standing around, if they really in that moment, like felt like, something needed to be done, they could have probably like stepped in and got him off of him,
Yeah.
got them off of him. But I wasn't there, so maybe, there was 3 cops there, rather than kill a bunch of people afterwards, and then that, like the next time you see something like that, step in. Don't just, yeah, we're going to get it on camera so that, we can burn down society later. Step in, stand up. Don't be a fucking pussy. I'm fucking tired of this shit.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely fucking tired of apathy. I've dealt with it my whole life. People just standing back when evil like is happening and not taking action, and then just afterwards like having a voice about it, because there's been many times in my life where I've stepped in. Somebody was stealing shit out of my car. I was like, I'm sorry, excuse me. It was my parents' car.
Yeah.
What kind of, do about it? I stood up for a girl at a party one time that probably was going to get raped,
Yep.
But people just are fucking apathetic, and I'm sick and tired of that. I know I can cuss on YouTube, and this is not a channel, but I try not to do that, but
yeah, no.
To me, that is true evil. Like,
you feel passionate about it, and that's good though. That's good, and I think that it's good to take that. I think that energy is what in my faith, moral outrage, I think is what a lot of the world calls it now and stuff like that. But it's a my brain, I'm just pulling a blank on it right now. It's the, oh gosh, I just totally pulled a blank on it. I hate it when my brain does that. It's not just an honorable thing. It's not just the honorable trait. Is that the world needs fighters.
Yeah.
Okay. The world needs.
And I
fighters.
realize not everybody can be brave, but when you have like multiple people standing there.
Yeah. And
like
the and it is part of us to. It's in all of us. We have a fight or flight mechanism in all of us. The world does need fighters, but they need to be aimed towards good and moral causes. You don't want them being aimed towards junk and things that are wasteful and convincing them that this evil thing is good. You know what I mean? Because there was a lot of people that Nazi party didn't rise to power by itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There was a whole lot of apapathy, and people were like,
a lot of apathy.
Making excuses.
Making excuses.
Like,
yeah.
Oh, well, if they did that, they could get hurt. Well, why don't you set that aside? In that instance,
Yep.
I can understand if you have a family back at home or something, but there's we can always make excuses. There's like even more benign stuff where we could just step in and prevent somebody from getting hurt.
Yeah, and it's standing up. It's standing up for what's right, and that's you got to the point faster than I did. That's actually kind of what I wanted to really bring up, to wrap it up, was to say to people is that you need to stand up. People need to stand up.
Start calling people out for their bad behavior. Don't just be like, oh, that's okay. They're like that. I mean, you can probably find way more nicer ways than I put it sometimes.
Yeah, I would agree. But you can do things in a kind way. You can do things and still be. You can still be harsh and do it out of love. You can still be firm and do it out of love. I think this is the biggest problem, I think, with society is that there's not everybody, not everybody, but so many people lack good fathers. I mean, that's the thing that you learn from your dad. That's the thing that you learn from your dad. You learn from your dad is hey, son, I love you. Stop messing up. Yeah. Stop doing that thing. You're going to hurt you and you're going to hurt the other people around you if you continue with this activity. I love you. I will always love you, but stop doing that stupid thing you're doing. That's what dads do. That's like the thing is they rough around with you. They're rougher and tougher. They're blunter with you. And then, mom's always there to soothe you and everything like that. But you seek that approval from your father, and a good father tries to raise other good children, good people. And this goes for girls and boys both. I'm not just saying just for young men. I'm saying for young women as well. Is the lack of a good father figure in their house, I think, is why people are so apathetic and stuff. Is because I learned to stand up for what was right when I was young. I learned to do that then. There was more than one time throughout my life just growing up that I defended people that were being picked on. I hated bullies.
Yeah.
I despise bullies. My dad hated bullies.
Yeah.
And he passed that right along to me. And I grew up poor. I didn't grow up with a whole lot and everything. But we had each other. I was happy. We were loved and I felt good. And I learned morals. I learned virtue. I learned honor. I learned these things. And I just wanted to be that. And I that's never left me. Still to this day, that's who I still want to be every day. I want my wife to look at me and say, that's a good and honorable man. I want my friends to look at me and say, that's a good and honorable man. Yeah. I want them to see good in me. And I don't want to be selfish. You can't take it with you. So I want to lift other people up, whether that's financially or emotionally or spiritually. I want to see people do better. But sometimes I've had to be harsh. And one of the hardest lessons that I've had to learn in life is that sometimes you do have to be harsh. Sometimes you do have to be blunt with people. But you must make it clear to them that when you do it, you're not doing it out of hate. And don't do it out of anger. When you're addressing a sibling or a son or daughter or a parent or anything like that, because there's a lot of separation and division now in Western culture. The nuclear family is under attack. It's just been under attack for so long, and there's so much division. But we have to build bridges, and we have to heal those divides. And sometimes you are going to have to say things that are harsh, but you're gonna say it, and you're gonna say, look, the only reason I'm telling you this, and the only reason I'm being firm is because I love you, and I know where this road leads. It leads to destruction. We've been telling women lies for the last 30 years that are beyond ridiculous. And this is where I become misogynist and sexist and everything else. Men and women are different, okay? They have overlapping traits. Yes, there are some women that go into the engineering field. There are some men that go into medical field. I guess there's a lot of women working in the medical field now, or into social field, teaching, things like that or whatever. And I've met some wonderful teachers that were men and some wonderful technical people, technicians and engineers that were women and stuff. They're rare, but they're not, it's not that they're rare because they're a woman. It's because women aren't as interested in those things on average. There's only a few women that are as interested in those things. And then they go into those fields and then they get satisfaction from working in that field. That's not sexism. That's just different in the sexes, period.
Yeah.
Is that we're different.
I do think it's interesting
I got more to
the
say about that.
society has a little bit to play with, like some of that. But
Oh,
you're
yeah.
right, there is difference because I mean, what was it? I think they were German. Remember that German like OEM person that came in and she was like,
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
yeah, I mean, she was like sharp. She knew like all the whatever for this very meticulous CNC machine or whatever, you know. Like,
Yep.
But yeah, I imagine like
And all the
places
men.
like Germany that have trade schools and like promote like the stuff like that. There's probably a lot more women in those type of fields, you know. So society, I think, has like kind of pushed women down a little bit and said, you shouldn't be interested in that. But
Oh, I'm not saying that.
yeah, and I don't
life's
think you
fair.
are. But if you want to be a mom, that's freaking awesome. We
Yeah.
shouldn't knock that down either.
I think it's
Like,
it's the highest calling. I think it's the toughest job.
yeah, because like I've known probably about 3 women in my life that just absolutely wanted to be a mom and love being a mom, but a lot of the rhetoric I hear now, it's like, she must be a horrible person,
It's
for wanting to stay
weird.
at home and be a mom,
I know it's weird. It's
And
terrible.
it wasn't even that they
Terrible.
had, a man holding them down, because at least 2 of them that I can remember were very strong, independent women,
Mm-hmm.
that actually, both of them had kids and didn't have like
Yeah.
the baby daddy around or whatever. So
Yeah, yeah. I know I'm going into the men and women, the differences and stuff like that. My wife was the that I know of was the first qualified female air traffic controller on an aircraft carrier. Qualified. So that means that she actually went through and was able to sit and talk on the stuff to the to the pilots. I'm terrible right now. But she was the first, because we were one of the first aircraft carriers to switch over to female, and if not the first. And then there were some other women that came on board with her, but none of the other ones qualified. She was the one that actually qualified. You go through you to stand watches. You go through qualifications because you want people being, you don't want to kill people and you don't want to destroy billions of dollars worth of military hardware. So you make sure that people are qualified to run and, maintain the equipment and land planes and, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, but what I witnessed is that there was a push where they were like pushing people into things that they didn't really necessarily want to be in or really qualify for. Right. And I think a lot of that is because they didn't have that kind of interest and everything. They didn't have that kind of competitive edge. They weren't that interested in it. And that was sad to me, because what you saw was it made in a lot of guys' eyes, a lot of the military, and remember this was, over 20 years ago now, for a lot of those guys, this is the beginning of the integration of the females into the military in a major way. And that during that process, there was a lot of bad blood. There was a whole lot of bad blood because it got pushed on people that were much older than me. I'm in my mid 40s now. That these people were in their 60s and 70s. You know what I mean? That were running things and stuff. And so their thought process on it and stuff made it much tougher for the women than it needed to be. Sexual assault and rape was a very regular thing that happened in the military back then for females. And gosh, I mean, just about, I think every woman that I knew had an instance of it, and it was terrible. It was absolutely freaking terrible. But somebody decided, because, hey, this is the way that we want it to be, we're going to force it to happen. And that sort of mentality completely did not take into account like human nature and how these things would most definitely play out, not just probably or possibly. It was like most definitely play out. And we can't like come to these agreements and understanding. But we kind of got off on a tangent there. So it's the reason I brought that up about them lying to females about it is because the whole saying what is good and what's evil. You've got people saying that there's these evil things that are good, and they've been lying to a lot of women and been telling them a whole lot of nastiness that's been very self-destructive to their futures, to their happiness. I'm not talking about mine. I've been married for over 20 years. I'm not talking about me. I'm not talking about my life. I'm concerned about all of the women out there that are, and if you're happily unmarried, if you truly are happily unmarried, I have met a few of you. Hats off. I'm not talking about you guys. I tip my hat to you. That's, if you truly are happy being alone and that's just the kind of personality you are, peaceful and stuff. Hey, look, I'm not knocking you. This is not against you, but I'm sorry. My whole entire life, it has been my observation that most women are miserable alone. They don't want to be alone. They don't want to die alone. They want to be around family.
I think in my experience, I'm one of the few people that has probably been alone. That I've known, as long, like, I think there's a lot of men that can't be alone either. But,
I agree.
It's definitely like,
I agree. I
would agree with you that it's a lot harder for women, especially
yes,
whether it's societal or, like,
well, they're more social,
or instinctual or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Women are more social.
Yeah.
And that's what all the science says. That's what all the science says. It's, that's a good thing, and that's okay. There's differences, and that's fine. And these are averages. You've got guys that are more social, and you've got women that are less social, and stuff like that. They're overlapping. They're overlapping traits, But the peaks in the sexes, there are over here, and then the overlapping's right here, where you've got a few, that kind of go both ways on that.
I guess it isn't good versus evil, but I think it's like
no, that's not good versus evil.
No. What I'm about to say, like, I don't know that it's really good versus evil, but I do think people should embrace the thought of being alone rather than being with somebody that is horrible, or maybe evil to them,
Yes,
somebody that abuses them.
And they shouldn't fear. They shouldn't. That's a good thing. They shouldn't fear loneliness so much that they have to be with somebody.
You can get past loneliness, but like somebody can really wreck you, if you're a person.
Oh yeah.
And people need to not be so afraid to stand up for themselves. With anything, not just in a relationship.
Yeah.
I don't want to challenge people a lot of times.
Yeah, I don't want to poo-poo. I don't want to poo-poo on what you're saying there because I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, we don't have to talk a lot about that. It's just
I agree with
what
you're saying.
In there because
I just think that in the last like several decades and stuff, what's gone on with marriage and the marriage rates and divorce rates and the broken homes, the amount of broken homes is heartbreaking to me. And when I look at that, I think to myself, yes, you need to tell your spouse, you need to be truthful and honest with them and say like how these things make me feel and this and that and everything. But you also need to look within yourself as well and say, where is this coming from? Am I taking this out? Is it something from a past relationship or trauma that I'm bringing into the relationship that I've not dealt with? And now I'm taking it out on my
for sure people
other,
need to learn compromise. I'm talking about like egregious like abuse or like emotional abuse or
and that's where I agree with you. That's where I agree with you. It's I'm trying to be careful about that and Jared, because here's the thing is I hear you've got these weird things. You've got this sort of feminazi sort of side of things that are just really dump on men. Like men are just tools to be used. They're just wallets and that's just what men are. Stuff, and it's a really grotesque look at life. But then you also have the manosphere. You know what I'm saying? That say just a bunch of garbage and everything and you
push down women as much as
exactly. They take every opportunity to kind of
like misogynist.
They might be kind of veiled about it, but they still they're really trying to take every opportunity to like own the women and like kind of like put them down and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I understand the pushback. I do understand the pushback because of what's been going on with no contest divorces, no fault divorces, those kind of things where people just walk in, sign paperwork, and they're done. And like over 80% of these are initiated by women. And I can understand why, and me personally, within my own family and what I've seen and what's gone on, I have repeatedly seen women destroy their own homes. And I can think of people within the family and everything like that. It was not the man. I'm not saying the man was perfect by any means, but it was not the man that initiated the divorce. These were not cases of abuse. These were not cases of neglect. These were not cases of anything what I would deem worthy. I think of any ethical person would deem worthy of breaking up a family. What I've seen in these cases has been it's usually infidelity on part by the woman. They get bored. They don't see their man as the one anymore and everything, and they go through that period. Every marriage has its ups and downs to it and stuff. And if you can get past that, and work through that together, you will have a lifelong partner that you will be so grateful for and you will be so in love with. But getting there can be very tough. And so when people are feeling like emotionally like, oh, I'm not happy, something's not right or whatever, I want that excitement back of romance or whatever. So, and then they're filled with all these lies of like, oh yeah, you can go out there and get any man you want and da 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 da, and and they think because they're getting hit on online and everything like that, they buy the lie, and then what ends up happening is they end up divorced. Sure, they can get a lot of men to sleep with them, but they're not going to be able to get a man to commit to them, and that's heartbreaking because they've destroyed their life. They broke up a family. They did these things, and I'm talking about from what I know, what I've seen personally, and it matches the data and it matches the numbers, what's been going on. But you have a large voice, getting back to the point, you have a large voice out there, very loud segment of the population saying, this is a good thing. We should have less children. The nuclear family is terrible. What? This is ridiculous. Why are you espousing these views? Why would you? What's the point of that? Right? Yeah. That ideology to me is evil, and it's set against good. It's set to confuse things. It's to try to make all these other people over here feel guilty and everything like that for things they didn't even do, and usually you're attacking the people that are more compassionate and have more empathy, and what you're doing is you're putting them down, and they're the Nazis and they're the bad people and stuff like that. And a lot of times with these divorces that I've seen these good men just get wrecked, man, just get wrecked, because that's just the way the courts work now, and with their children and their finances and everything like that, just decimated by it. And then you what has that done to society? So all these things that you're saying are good and everything like that, and I'm not saying Jeremiah's saying is good, but this group of people are saying is good, has been nothing but destructive, not only to themselves, right, but to society as a whole. Okay? And that's kind of where I'm at with that. I'm trying to keep it clear, trying to make it really clear, is that you've got this constant argument of you're bad, I'm good because I say so. And then I get some people to join me and shout at you. You know what I mean? Kind of shame you or whatever. And it's like, And the good thing that I'm going to say, one of the things that I definitely learned growing up is it's very difficult to shame me. It's very difficult to embarrass me. These are things that are very tough to do with me.
Is it?
Because I stand on my values. I know that I have my moral convictions, and those things are not going to move. You can convince me of things. You can bringing facts to me or whatever about, scientific issues and political issues and things like that. You can bring me facts about stuff and I can look at it and go, oh, and you could change my mind on something like that. But you're not going to change my mind on what's good and evil. You're not going to be able to do that with me. And you're also not going to make me feel ashamed of where I stand, and you're not going to make me afraid of where I stand. It's not going to happen, because I'm planted in objective reality. My mind is planted in objective reality, and my spirit is planted in truth. So these sort of things they're noise. They're just noise to me. And it gets easier to go back to what you said, stand up. And that's what's really important, is that people need to stand up, and they need to stand up for what's good. They need to stand up for what's good. They need to look at it and say, this is what's compassionate. This is what's good. This is what's moral. This is what's virtuous. This is what's honorable. We want to protect the children. We want to protect the family. We want good, strong families that are whole and wholesome and raise good, strong children that lead good lives. And who cares about the money? Stop thinking about the money. Stop thinking about, that will come. If you've got a good society like that, it will be a productive society, and that society will be able to sustain amazing growth. That comes secondary. Stop focusing on the money. Start focusing on what's right, what's good, what's moral, what uplifts others. How do we bring people out of poverty, and think about the mechanics of it. Don't think I'm going to take money from these other people to give to these other people. You've accomplished nothing. You've done nothing. Your idea sucks. Okay? It doesn't pass the smell test. Let's move beyond all this garbage and noise and start standing up and speaking truth. There's a large part of the population that has remained quiet, very quiet for many years about many things. And it's really time for them to grow a backbone and stand up and start standing up for what's good. Because right now, evil has had the loudest voice for too long. And it's time to stomp that out. What we see now is reminiscent of every evil revolution, color revolution in time. You go back, Mao, Stalin, Nazis, and there's many other examples, and they have these same sort of revolutionary type of things that are off the rails, and they're very destructive. They destroy families, they destroy lives, they take and they never give. They don't build.
Yeah, if it doesn't offer like a truly better solution, to what they see as something wrong. I mean, it's probably not good.
No, that's not. I think people don't. I think a lot of people just don't read a lot of history. Even just surface level. I'm not talking about real, really even super in depth or whatever. It's just I don't consider myself a historian by any means. I don't consider myself some great historian. I think history is interesting. I don't feel like I've taken a particularly large amount of time to go through like a lot of history. I've read quite a bit compared. Now when I've talked to people, I realize, maybe I have read more than the average guy or whatever. But I going back, I'm like, a lot of these lessons from history are pretty clear that it's actually human nature is what we're observing. We're observing human nature. And for some reason, we thought in the United States or in Western countries or whatever, that we were somehow immune to human nature. We're somehow immune to revolutionaries. We're somehow immune to evil. We're somehow immune to immorality or something like that. And these things won't get fixed unless people stand up and say, that's bad. Yeah. That's bad. And I think it's time for to do it. But be kind. Don't get into Twitter fights and, and arguments on the internet and stuff. Face to face, man. Reach out or pick up the phone, call somebody or whatever and stuff like that. Ask them out for coffee or lunch or whatever it is and stuff. And show them that you're human. Show them that you care. Show them that you're concerned. And try to win people's hearts and minds that way. Because I think that's going to be a whole lot more effective. And also realize that you're not going to win them all. You're not going to win them all over because you can't change other people. They have to decide for themselves that they want to change. All you can do is present them with truth. And then, you know, let it go from there. Let it go from there. Because you might plant a seed that doesn't, you don't ever see it blossom. You know, you might plant a seed of truth in somebody that it sits there for a long time. And then 5 years later, they kind of go, man, I was really wrong about this. You know, Joe was right. He sat down and he talked to me, and I should have listened to him. You know, I should have heard. And maybe Joe never finds out. You know, Joe never finds out that you know, that man or woman like shifted, had a change of heart down the road. But it's important. It is important to speak truth to people because they'll remember. There's something in us that really recognizes truth, and we crave it. We really do. We really crave that truth. I think we're kind of gone over a little bit here, but is there anything else you wanted to add to that, or?
No.
Okay, I didn't want to wrap it up on you if you had a good take or anything like that. But man, this is a good conversation. I would go on for a long time and stuff like that, but we got some other things we got to take care of as well. Please, if you would, like and subscribe, share the video. We're going to keep doing this. I know we don't have a real big viewer count or anything like that, but I think that it is important for people to put their voice out there, speak truth, and as Jeremiah always says, think for yourself, man. You got anything to add to that? Yeah,
well, you covered that, but I guess I'll say, if you have it in you, you know, find the bravery, like set apathy aside, and if you see an injustice unfolding in front of you, like, you know, if you have the power to do it, you know, like step in and prevent it from happening. That's not to say that you should go up against a mob. That's never a good idea. Maybe cut tail and run the other way, because 50 versus 1, you know, ain't gonna cut it. But, you know, if we just all work on being a little bit better and like standing up for those around us that can't stand up for themselves, I didn't really think it would help, you know, help us get past some of this like terribleness that's happened in the last while. So that's all I got to say.
We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.